you know, and in talking about 56 years of marriage, you know, we want to make sure that y'all understand that marriage is probably the most challenging relationship on the planet.
Yes.
And we had a lot of experiences. First of all, we started out marriage with a baby on the way. We both had a number of experiences from being in dysfunctional families that resulted in my case, alcoholism. And I was basically a practicing alcoholic from the age of 16 to the age of 43. And Mary had her own experience in her dysfunction, and I guess you could tell that story.
Yeah, if you reach under that folder, I finally got the courage to write. I have to probably put it up by the camera.
Yeah, you got it right.
But I wrote this. I had talked about writing this book for 30 years.
Mm.
And about, 2 years ago was when I was diagnosed.
4 years ago.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Mary was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 4 years ago. So we're also on a journey right now that's very different than when we were on earlier.
Yeah, it's not been dull. Actually, it's become fun. Well, for the most part, I would have to, yeah. For the most part, I would say that we have been having a good time with it.
Mm.
And that's what when I first was diagnosed.
Trying to hold it.
Yeah, I got this message that I truly believe came from God. And that message was, you can either let this tear you apart or you can have fun with it.
Mm.
You're talking about the Alzheimer's.
Right. And in the book, it tells what happened when I got this message. And it's just, so anyway, I talked to Andy after I got this, when God visited me in the ladies' room in the grocery store and said, you can choose. It's your choice what you want. Let it tear you apart or have fun with it.
Mm.
So I went outside and I said to Andy, I was just in the bathroom talking to God. He's going, okay. I said, no, really, I was. And he said, sure. I'm going. So we did. We decided to have fun with it, and we really have. And we do, the dumbest stuff. The kids would probably look at us like, are they for real? But it's just, and I have felt very peaceful. I know that Alzheimer's is a death sentence.
Mm.
We're all going to die. But it's not, you can let it, again, let it tear you apart or you have fun with it. And, okay, am I going to die today or tomorrow? I said, I'm not telling you anything. I'm just telling you, you're going to go.
Mm.
And we knew that. So it's been fascinating. And I forgot why I even started to, and that's part of it.
That's good.
Yeah.
You did good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Let me. All right, we're on.
okay. Yeah, so we kind of jumped ahead a little bit for our most current journey at 52 years. We've been on this 4-year journey toward Alzheimer's, but way before then, we experienced Mary, in her own life experience, was molested by her dad when she was 5, and the sexual impropriety of that happening has had an effect on her for the rest of her life. We're still dealing with it to this day. Another thing that happened during our marriage is the loss of a job. A period of time where I was out of work for a little while. We also had the experience of a 17-year-old daughter getting pregnant and dealing with that situation, and then coming to watch our first grandchild be adopted out to a couple that adopted them. So we've had that experience. I've been in the AA program now. This will be coming up in August 17th, 35 years. And Mary has been in recovery for almost as long. So we've got a lot of 12-step background behind us. Another thing that we've experienced is 31 years ago, we went into a prison for the first time. And we went in on a Christian retreat. We were thinking we were bringing Jesus into the prison, only to find out he was already there. And we thought we were going to be teaching the inmates, and they taught us so much more than we could even hope to bring to them. So that's been an experience. Been in Kairos. I've been in Mary couldn't go on this one, but I've been in a Supermax prison where men are locked down 24 hours a day in a single cell. This is a prison where the inmates that can't get along in a regular prison are sent. So I've had that experience. And we also had the experience 2 years ago, this coming Christmas, of losing our 24-year-old granddaughter to drugs. And she passed away with a fentanyl overdose. And she left behind a little boy who now is 5 years old. And our daughter, the one that got pregnant when she was 17 and gave away her child, has now adopted her grandson, our great grandson, and is raising him. And our granddaughter is now 51 years old doing that. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a flavor of some of the interesting stuff that we put up with. I was a drunk for the first 22 years of our marriage out of the 56. So that was an experience in its own. And we can talk about just about anything along those lines that you guys want to talk about.
So one reading that often I give in this class, it talks about how people tend to live out or recreate their childhood in their marriages. And every time I give that reading, most of my students just kind of balk at that idea. They think they're their own person. They come into their relationships with who they are, and they know who they are, and they kind of know who their parents are, and they're going to not necessarily, their childhoods aren't going to necessarily influence or affect or shape their future relationships, much less their marriage. So you two want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure
Your
can.
experience, Ben.
Do you have some thoughts on that, or you want me to?
No, maybe you should, because the only thing I could think of was the incest, and which is why I wrote the book. After my parents passed away, my mother was so afraid that people were going to find out, and I would talk to the lamppost. I mean, I didn't. My mother was always scared to death whenever I would eavesdrop and catch on a secret or something, and she would say, "This does not leave this house," And I'm going, "What did I do?" And she knew that I couldn't keep my mouth shut. And I would go and tell everybody, and she lived with such shame. So after they're all gone, I'm the matriarch now. That's why I wrote the book. And if they want to really save some time, I mean, it's all in the book, and we do tend to read.
There's no question about the fact that our childhood decisions, especially when you come from a dysfunctional family, but to be honest with you, I don't know that there's too many functional families around. Even the families that seem to do pretty well, even by accident, parents make mistakes as they're raising their children, and they say things or do things in a way that the child doesn't feel safe. They may, because they're very interested in the child doing well. They might have a punitive approach to school failings, being, failing a class or something like that. And how you're treated as a child has everything to do with how you learn to stay safe. The way we're built as, the way God put it into us, he put into us a very, very strong instinct to survive, to stay alive. And so as children, because we are children, we don't have all the tools that an adult has, but we come up with a way of creating some safety for ourselves and being able to tolerate.
Sorry.
You can edit that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I can edit that out.
Okay.
Okay. So, they, I lost my thought now.
You were talking about just needing to feel safe as a child.
Feeling safe. And so we come up with ways to do that. Some children, just as a bizarre example, some children will go hide in the closet and not deal with the situation. Other children will act out because they're affected by the fact that maybe they have an older sibling that is being paid attention to more so by the parents than they are. So they start to act out in maybe negative ways in order to feel like they get some attention. So there are a lot of things that we do as children just to try to be comforted, just try to be safe.
Mm.
And those things follow us throughout our lives unless we take a hard look at them and realize that there are more adult ways, better ways to deal with that than what we would come up with as a child.
Mm.
So let me stop there and let's go for that walk.
Well, one question that comes up a lot is whether it be the alcoholism or having one of your children get pregnant or losing a grandchild. You've been through quite a lot. A lot of marriages seem to end over a lot less than that. So why has your marriage lasted so long, or why didn't you get a divorce?
Okay.
And I've got something to say too before
Go
you.
ahead. You say it before you forget.
There's I think 10 pages in that book. And the title of that chapter is How to Keep the Love Alive.
Mm.
And the thing is that, guys come into a relationship with one set of expectations, gals come in with another set. They usually don't jive. They don't fit like this. And unfortunately, women are a lot harder to please than men. You give a guy a good hot meal, and basically that's about it. I could have done their page, half a page. You give them a good hot meal every day. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. Sex 2-3 times a week. You got a happy camper. Women, you've got to do it this way, and it's got to be done the way she does it. And if you do it for her, you got to do it as if she was doing it. And it's we're a pain in the ass. I couldn't. There's no way in hell I would ever go for another woman. Just too much work. Just too much work. But it's
so, to some degree you can kind of draw some conclusions from the way we're talking, because again, we're very different. And to answer your question, why did we stay together for those 22 years where I was drinking? Well, first of all, I wasn't down in the gutter kind of drunk. Mary used to call me
French waiter.
After I sobered up, she called me a French waiter type of drunk.
And I explained that in there too.
But part of it had to do with just her. We had 4 kids. She had a fear of what do I do if we get divorced? How am I going to handle these 4 kids?
What am I going to do with it?
There was a point in her life where I was still traveling, because after we got married and after we had all these kids, I started to go to college, I did not get my college degree until I was 31. I started when I was 25, and we already had at least one child at that point. So we got all four of our kids during that period of time that I was going to college. So I was gone a lot, and Mary was saddled with the kids by herself. She got pretty distraught. I mean, this came out a long time afterwards, but she actually had planned to, do away with them all by, getting in the car and reading books to them while the car was running with the
Yeah.
exhaust coming in the window. Of course, she didn't realize that you had to have a closed garage in order for that really to work, because we still had a carport at the time. But she didn't really try it. But the point was that it was a miserable time. It was not an easy time. We even had, in our experience, when we were in our 30s, middle 30s or so, before sobriety, of some strain, on Mary's part, where she found somebody more attractive at work. So how do you stay together through all of that? First of all, I think the biggest factor is that, we truly believed that we believed in our marriage vows. We really truly believed that no matter what happened, we were going to be standing next to each other after it was over, that we were not going to divorce. We were going to work our way through this. It wasn't easy. It was very hard, in fact. And if it wasn't for the fact that we had a lot of support on the outside, one of the beautiful tenets of the 12-step program is that we build a beautiful support group of people who really care and who are real and who are not afraid to talk about the really difficult issues of life. And so, as far as we were concerned, divorce wasn't an option. We did not have a back door out of our marriage. There's a book that was written back in, I think, the 1800s. It's called The Art of War. And one of the things that it said in there is that when you're strategizing a war against your enemy, that you always leave a back door, that you always leave a way out for the enemy to escape, as opposed to, because if you don't, they're in a corner, they're backed into a corner, and they have to fight. We did not follow the tenets of that idea. We followed the idea of there is no way out. We have to either work our way through this or kill each other.
And there were times.
Death. The D word was not divorce; it was death. Right.
Right. I didn't think I had. I think the only reason he's alive, I didn't think I had the chutzpah to kill him. But believe me, I contemplated the idea a lot, and there was something that I hope it comes back, because it's.
Oh, I didn't see your signal.
I get thoughts, and then they like fly through, and
that's part of the disease, the
Yes.
Alzheimer's disease.
So.
So so basically, trying to answer that question of what makes you stay together, the idea of the fact that marriage is really important, and it's, we were put together for a reason. We know now, and it took us a long, long time to come to this idea.
Okay.
Go.
And the thing
Go.
I found is that if you work through it, if you really try and work through it, God will do whatever he has to make it work, because he's rooting for us. He put us together in the first place. He handpicked the other person for us before we were born. And I can see that more now. And it's like, his talking about yin and yang and all that stuff. It's like we're just so perfectly matched or mismatched or something that it's like, it's hard to do this with a brain that's short circuiting, but I think And I think I talk about that in there too, that if you give it your best try, God will turn over everything he asked you to see that it works for you.
Mm.
The other thing that's really added to that and made our life even more happy and contented, especially as we age, is the idea that, you know, I said right at the beginning that we're 180 degrees out. So the things that attracted us to each other were things that, you know, we feel like there's 4 chemistries that are really important in a marriage. You know, physical attraction, intellectual attraction, emotional attraction, and spiritual attraction. Those 4 really have to all 4 be there in order for a marriage to work. I think one of the things that worked for us is that we took a while getting to know each other before we got married. We were, you know, many people get married at a point where they really don't know the other person
Right.
yet. It takes a while for you to drop all of the false faces that you put on, especially when you're dating and so on.
And you're
because
trying to impress somebody.
you're trying to impress the person and to be who you think they want you to be rather than just being who you really are. And I think that what happens, and one of the things that we've learned and the things that we teach, is that couples come together, they're totally attracted to each other, and that romantic phase lasts about 18 months to 2 years. And then all the very same things that attracted us to each other are the things that piss us off about each other. And we get to the point where we're making each other wrong for our differences. And it's the difference, you know, one of the things that happened to us is as we aged, and I'm gonna afraid to have to say this, but it was like our 50th wedding anniversary. One of the things that we made was a new vow, and that was that we were gonna honor our differences instead of making each other wrong for our differences.
Mm.
And we've done a pretty good job of that here in this last 6 years. I can't say that we did a great job of it in the first 50. We were getting better at it, but we didn't make a commitment to do that, and we have a commitment to do that now. So hopefully that is a long-winded answer to your question.
No, thank you. That answers it. I love it.
I hope you're a professional editor because you got, you
You
got
cut
your
out a
work
lot.
cut off for you.
Well, I'm going to learn how to edit. I need to go for dinner in a minute, but I mean, the one question that I know every year the kids want to talk about, and that I think is such a beautiful demonstration of how your marriage has really healed you both, is, you know, just talking about how you responded to your daughter's pregnancy.
Okay. Well, what happened was, this was like August. The baby was born in March. In August, Mary took Stacy to lunch,
Yeah,
during that,
we had a routine of that.
yeah, and during that lunch, Stacy, I don't know, at 17, I'm not so sure you did. You do now.
Okay.
But at 17, you know, she took her to lunch, and Stacy told her what was going on. And
What happened is she said, I'm not really hungry. And I said, oh, I thought you were early. Well, I just, you know, and what happened is she started looking at the food, and it just, her stomach was turning. I said, what are you, pregnant? And she didn't answer me. And I don't think she knew for a fact at that point.
Yeah.
So basically what happened is Mary came home, and we went in that week. This was like a Tuesday, I think it was. I don't know why this is so clear as to what day of the week it was, but Tuesday is when we found out. Saturday of that week, we had an exchange student coming from Italy to spend a year with us. And in the meantime, we started, you know, we were very upset, very emotional about this. This wasn't the plan. We were blaming each other. what we did wrong so that this happened and so on. It's all your fault. Blah blah. And on Friday, I met with my spiritual director, and I told him I was crying, and I told him what the problem was, and he said, let me tell you what I think the problem is. He said, I think the problem is that this isn't the way you wrote the story. This wasn't supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Your story was a wholly different story. It did not include the pregnancy of your daughter. And so from that conversation, we called the whole family. Now, my daughter is 17, she's the youngest, and all four of them were home at the time. The 21-year-old, and like I said, they're very
3
close
boys
together.
and a girl. And she was the
And
only girl.
we called a family meeting for that night. And they all had concerts and dates and all kinds of stuff in the works. And we didn't ask them to do anything, but what happened is that everything that they had planned got canceled somehow or another. And we found ourselves sitting in the middle of the living room floor, surrounded by our kids who were sitting on the couches.
Mm-hmm.
And we told them what was going on, and the family came together and they said, we're going to get through this together. The brothers were amazing. And then the exchange student arrived the next day. That was a Friday. This was a Saturday. Okay, so fast forward to, we're going through the months of Stacy getting big. Mary is taking Stacy to the doctor. When Mary took Stacy to the doctor to have the test done.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell that story?
Okay, I didn't even have the presence of mind when the results came back. The doctor is a woman, and she said, you're pregnant. And Stacy started crying. I started crying, and Dr. Walsh had the presence of mind of taking Stacy up and hugging her. And then when I should be doing that, and it was like, we'll get through this. We'll get through this.
Yes. So
there was no talk about, abortion or anything like that.
Yeah, the kids both were going to the Catholic school at the time.